Hey, folks, for episode 95 of the Rental Roundtable, we recorded this episode at Rental Roundtable Live in Atlanta with the team from JCT Growth. It's all about SEO marketing for equipment rental companies. A lot of people said this is one of the more informative episodes from Rental Roundtable Live, recorded in Atlanta in January. A lot of good content here. If you're thinking about how do you grow your business online, which is where most commonplace people hear about your rental company, how to use SEO to do that, how is AI playing into that? I think you'll enjoy this episode.
All right, you guys. Well, it's 7:12 a.m. and a crew's standing on a job site. Now, while they're there, their lift's not starting. The schedule's tight, the trucks are booked, the people are there to work, and every single minute is going to cost real money. Someone pulls out their phone and they're not browsing, they're not researching, they're not trying to compare brands. They're typing one thing into Google: boom lift rental. Now, whichever company shows up first, close enough, clear enough, and available enough, they're the one that's gonna get the rental. Everyone else, they don't even exist in that moment. Quick show of hands. How many people have Googled something today? Fabulous. How many have Googled something while standing on a job site, in a warehouse or at work? In those moments, you need something now, not later. The moment right there, that urgency, is what this entire talk's about. When people search for equipment, they're not casually shopping. Something broke, something is delayed, a crew is waiting, and if Google can't find you fast, you guys, and close, that rental is going to someone else. With that said, my name is Catherine Mitchell. I'm the Director of Content at JCT Growth, and I help business show up when the pressure's on. Now, today we're going to be talking about equipment rentals and how we get seen in algorithms. And I know what you're thinking: perfect, an SEO talk right after lunch. I will yell if I need to keep you guys awake. Just let me know. But today we're going to talk about owning the map, owning your local presence, and turning high pressure searches into actual booked inventory. Now, this isn't a theory. This isn't something we just made up for fun. This is SEO that's built for physical equipment, real locations, and real operations. So let's start with a simple truth. Equipment rental searches are some of the highest intent searches that exist. Nobody is browsing for fun, at least outside of this room. When someone makes that search, they're already past awareness, they're past consideration, and they're ready to act. Distance is your friction. Every extra mile that we're going to introduce to the client would add doubt. Will they deliver? Will it be available today? Will this slow my job down? Google understands behavior deeply. It really does, in almost a creepy fashion. That is absolutely why proximity, relevance, and prominence is super important, especially when it comes to the land of local search. So this is the shift that most people are currently missing. Local SEO, it's no longer about traffic. It's about revenue. So quick gut check. How many of you guys currently track keyword rankings? A couple of SEO fans, perfect. Well, quite frankly, when you track keywords and you're looking at those wonderful numbers, how can you guarantee that someone's actually booking? Because let's be honest, it's not the keyword. We want that conversion. We need that revenue. This disconnect is what we're going to fix today. Now, this is something that surprises a lot of people. Most rental searches don't actually include the words "near me." Google understands this assumption automatically because it understands context. What people are actually asking is, can I get this right now? Is it close enough to be practical? Can I figure this out without having to call 5 places? Google's job is not going to be to show the most optimized website, at least not when it comes to equipment rentals. It shows the business that is most likely to fulfill that request as fast as possible. And increasingly, Google is rewarding search with this operational clarity that we're seeing. It is not rewarding clever marketing messages, as much as that disappoints me because I really like creating them. So, quick poll. How many of you guys have a near me campaign of any kind? A near me page on your website? Great. If you don't worry about it. Take it off your to-do list. It's no longer necessary. Those pages aren't as relevant anymore because Google gets it. Now, let's see. There are 3 rental mindsets happening at the same time, and most websites are only currently serving one of them. First, we have emergency rentals. These are where something's broken. These people convert fast if you remove the friction. Second, we have planned projects. They're bidding jobs, comparing options. They need the specs, the availability, and they need the trust. Then we have first timers. They're learning. They don't know what to rent yet, but they will. And the mistake is building SEO for just one of those tiers, one of those mindsets. The strongest rental brands we're seeing in the industry right now build an ecosystem that supports all 3. I want you to think about your website. Which of those that we spoke about does it serve best? And are there any that you're unintentionally ignoring? Because that's when change needs to happen. Now, one of the biggest mistakes we see is optimizing for rankings instead of rentals. It shows up in predictable ways. I'm talking industry jargon that customers don't actually use, pages that rank but aren't going to answer your real questions, and ignoring things like Google My Business and social. Guys, the hard truth we have is rankings don't equal renting. Traffic doesn't equal revenue. And SEO is only going to work for you when it reflects how people are actually searching and how rentals thus actually happen. Now, who has Google My Business profiles? Do you have them for every location? Now, how many of these profiles that you guys have actually have equipment names on them? I guarantee you, if you look at it, you're probably gonna figure out you might have forgotten that. But that's the reality. That gap right there is the opportunity we need to be talking about. So local SEO, it works like a stack, not just a tactic. You need 4 layers working together. So we have where you actually serve, what you actually rent, whether someone can act on information, and how quickly they can convert. If you miss one of these layers, things are going to break quietly, and that's just the reality. Ask yourself, if I landed on my homepage right now, could I tell in 5 seconds what you rent and where you serve? I bet that's going to be an eye-opening moment for you guys later. Location pages, they were the MVP for a really long time. Now, there's still places for them, but they can no longer be generic. The pages that we're seeing actually convert feel local. They talk about real service areas, real use cases, real customers. And we're seeing what fails are the copy and paste city pages that could apply to anywhere. If a local customer wouldn't recognize themselves in your location and know that they can rent something from you, Google's not going to trust you either. So we have to make it very clear. When you look at your site later, I also want you to check one of your location pages, because if you read that first paragraph, you need to figure out, does this sound like someone who works in the business or someone who's trying to rent? Because if you're not speaking to the appropriate target audience, you're not converting. It's that simple. Now, this is where a lot of rental brands get stuck. They think in city names. But fun fact, customers don't rent by city names. Rentals happen by service logic, so you have to break them down differently. You have pickup versus delivery, you have weekend DIY versus rural projects, and urban constraints, weekend DIY versus rural projects, urban constraints versus those rural projects as well. Now, your question should not be, can I rank here? The question you should be asking is, can I actually serve the area quickly and reliable? That is the most important part, and we'll get to why later. Now, I fear this next statement is gonna hurt somebody's feelings, so I'm sorry in advance, but SEO, when you're making that strategy, you need to follow reality, not ambition, okay? that can be a tough one to come to terms with. I worked for a rental company that was optimizing for boom lift rental, San Francisco. Y'all, one boom lift, one. And shocker, it was always booked. Now, they weren't doing SEO. They were paying for clicks they could not fulfill. And if you're ranking for equipment you do not realistically have available, that is not growth, that is wasted demand. I want you to think about your website. Are you optimizing based on what you wish you could rent or what you can actually deliver today? Keyword being today. Now, this is where most rental sites quietly lose money. Equipment pages are your revenue pages because they match intent better than almost anything else out there. I'm going to repeat that. Equipment pages are your revenue pages because they match intent better than anything else on your site. When someone lands on your equipment page, they're already halfway to renting, period. But here's what I see too often. Your equipment pages often look like spec sheets. Dimensions, weight capacity, boom height. That's useful, but it's not complete. Customers are not renting a 45-foot boom lift. They rent that thing that helps me get to the second story safely. They want to know, will this fit through the doorway? Can I transport it myself? And what kind of job is this actually being used for? A simple test for you all would be if someone who has never rented any kind of equipment before, if they can understand based on a product page what it does and why they need it. What it does and why they need it. And if they cannot answer those questions, your page is absolutely leaving revenue on the table. Now, this slide is super important because it changes how you think about content. This is not about creating dozens of hyper-specific blog posts that may never show a meaningful search volume. I'm not trying to tell you something you don't need to know for your business. That is a tactic that works for a lot of other companies, but in your industry, that is not what is equating to success. What we're seeing instead is that AI is mirroring traditional local rankings and then layering that context on top of it. So people aren't searching like equipment experts. They are searching like humans who are trying to solve a problem. Like, how do I install warehouse lighting? How do I handle short-term warehouse overflow? AI is then able to take that and connect to the jobs and the equipment and thus the right rental provider. If your core equipment pages already rank, then you are halfway there. Instead of writing those 50 blog posts, I want you to add 3 sentences to each page. Ideal for warehouse ceiling installations, HVAC work, and high bay lighting projects. That would be it. That's the bridge that AI needs. And you don't need more content. You need that help, that clear connection. Google, it doesn't just rank pages. It also evaluates trust. it looks for consistency across your entire digital footprint. Now, do your reviews, listings, pages, social, do the maps, are they all telling the same story of your brand? This is what actually is going to move your needle. Reviews that mention specific equipment, consistent name, address, and phone number information, maps that clearly show where you are and where you truly operate. And what doesn't work anymore? Fake reviews, fake locations, and keyword stuffed profiles. Those are completely overrated and out of date and will literally only be hurting you. Google is extremely good at detecting all of the fake now, especially as people are leaning to AI just to rate their content. There are hallmarks with all of this that if we can look at something that is AI written, and if I can tell you, yes, that's absolutely AI, even if you don't think it is, Google can recognize that too. It's just important to make sure that everything is connected. So we want you to be encouraged to invest in signals that are going to tell the internet and, well, Google and AI that you're real. That is what is going to win the current algorithm. Now, this is a silent killer of local SEO. And honestly, it's not talked about enough. Marketing promises availability that operations can't deliver. Now, I've seen this exact scenario play out. We have a site ranking #1 for scissor lift rental in Portland, and a customer calls and they're like, hey, sorry, we're out until next week. That customer probably isn't gonna call you back. They're not gonna trust your brand. And so it's safe to say then that local SEO is only gonna work when it reflects operational truth. If your site is saying words like available today and your ops team says maybe Thursday, you're not having an SEO situation. You're having an operations problem. The strongest rental brands we currently see out there only optimize for what they can actually rent. They're transparent about their delivery zones, pickup requirements, availability limits. That honesty that you're probably scared to put out there, that is what's actually going to build trust and help with those conversions on top of helping Google to see your worth. You don't lose customers when you are clear about what you can't do. You lose them when you overpromise and underdeliver. How many of you guys have had a customer show up expecting something that you've implied on your website, but you couldn't actually provide? That is what this alignment is going to fix. AI, it's not currently thinking in keywords. It thinks in confidence. Can it confidently recommend you? It looks at the proximity, trust signals, and clear rules. Now, if AI hesitates when it's starting to figure out that information, you better believe Google's going to hesitate too. This is why vague language fails. Wide selection, trusted partner, serving the region. How is AI supposed to know what region you are serving? It doesn't care what a trusted partner is. We have to be clear in what we are trying to say. Specificity is going to help AI understand you perfectly. Now, here's the test I actually want you to remember. Could AI explain how to rent from one of your locations? And if you answered that no, then you have some work to do. What wins will be, I'm going to say it over and over again, specificity, specificity, exact equipment, exact service areas, and clear rules. What's going to lose is over-optimization and then those vague promises. AI rewards that clarity, so I want to encourage you guys to give it that opportunity to help lift you up. I am failing to push it forward enough. I'm so sorry, y'all. All right, now I'm gonna say something that might sting. Traffic doesn't rent equipment. Clarity does, speed does, ease does, especially on mobile. I'm sure you all know that there is a different look from mobile versus desktop. If someone is on the hunt for a phone number, if they have to dig for availability or click 3 times to request a quote, you guys are losing rentals. That's right, I said 3 times. We don't want to make our people work too hard. If they can't do it in under 3 clicks, they're gone. When it comes to mobile, people need obvious next steps, not clever ones, not pretty ones, obvious. When someone lands on your website in an argument because something broke down, they're not evaluating your brand tone and voice. They're asking, what do I do next? What works in this instance would be location-aware calls to action. Call our Denver location, check availability in Phoenix. Not generic contact us that forces them to think. They're panicking. Let's make this easy for them. So we need not just dimensions and capacity of what the equipment does. We need to explain it in real word terms because these clear specs are going to matter. And then we need to think about speed. Click to call buttons. Those are available. Text options, lean into everything you can. Humans are lazy, we know this. Let's make it easier to depend on you. Basically, we want to give anything that can remove that hesitation before reaching out to you. Now, think of it like this. Every extra click someone has to take is going to leak revenue. Every moment of confusion that they have gives someone else that rental. Your goal is not going to be elegance. The goal is ease. And I want you to make it stupid simple. A lot of times we get caught up with talking in the industry to other industry professionals, and we forget that that's not how normal humans speak. And so I need you guys to keep that in mind and make sure you use that plain language. Now, this is where everything we talked about converges. So, urgent rentals happen on phones, period. They don't happen on desktop, not during research hours. It is on phones in the field under pressure. If someone is unable to request a rental in under a minute, we're taking those 3 clicks to under a minute because they both count. If they're not able to do that in under a minute, they're going to move on. So 1 minute, that is your bar. It's a lot of pressure, but it's the kind of pressure you guys should be paying attention to because that 1 minute determines whether you get a call or your competitor does. So later today, I want you to pull out your phone and try to request a rental from your own website. If it feels too slow for you, it's definitely too slow for someone that's standing on a job site. Now, vanity metrics feel good, but revenue metrics actually pay the bills. So traffic, impressions, and rankings, they're so much fun to celebrate, but they don't tell you if SEO is actually working. What matters is going to be that performance by location, by equipment, and then by conversion action. We want to look at which locations drive the most rental requests, which equipment pages are actually converting, where are people hesitating and dropping off. You guys should know there's software that can help you do this. You can actually see, it's kind of weird, but you watch people's eyes, essentially, as they would read your page. And you're able to look at where you're losing them and where they're holding on. And that can be really insightful. Now, these answers that you would get from these questions would tell you where to invest and where you can stop guessing. If you cannot clearly answer which locations and which equipment drive rentals, you are not optimizing, you're hoping. And hope is super cute, but it's not a strategy. So we want to encourage you to do a little bit more than that. Now, This part is hard for me, having been in the industry for so long, because it means letting go of metrics that we've been trained to create. Rankings without bookings, impressions without intent, wins that don't tie back to revenue. Those feel productive, but they're not moving the business forward. SEO is only going to be a win for you when it leads to action. And if it doesn't lead to a rental, it's time to rethink the whole process. Now, everything we have talked about today comes back to these 3 rules, and these 3 rules are not changing. AI will not replace them, it only enforces them. So we have rule 1, local relevance beats national visibility. Being close and clear, that is what matters more than being everywhere. I know I too am a business owner, and owning a business, you want to be seen. You want your brand out there, but oh my goodness, you need local relevance. You don't need to worry about being seen by everyone. Rule number 2, equipment pages drive revenue. That is because it allows you to match that intent where it actually lives. And rule number 3, SEO must reflect operations. If you can't deliver it, do not optimize for it, because you're only bringing yourself down in that. If you get these 3 right, everything else is going to get easier. And if you break them, no amount of optimization will necessarily save you. And it's a harsh reality, but it's true. Now, my final thought is, if Google and AI understand your locations better than your customers do, you win. Because at 7:12 in the morning, clarity is going to beat that cleverness. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Not to be blunt, but what are you offering? Does your company come in and just take this off of our plate?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, we sure do.
So the SEO stuff, I understand, but for example, you mentioned our websites, right? So the people we've worked with in the past, they're big on standing outside the door and being like, y'all are doing this wrong. And we're all so busy in here, we don't have time to have those conversations about how our equipment page should be better. We absolutely want it to be better. But do you help us in the sense more than just pointing at it saying this is wrong, you're doing this wrong?
Yes. One thing I really love is we are a small business. What that means to you guys is you get my cell phone number. We are there. We are there to help. We are there to implement. Scopes would be worked out based on what you need. But we charge a very, very minimal fee for equipment rental companies on a monthly basis to optimize on a slow roll, if you will. Yes, we can take all your money at one time and improve everything at once, but that doesn't necessarily make sense for small businesses. So sometimes we start with the low-hanging fruit and we move forward month by month, making you better.
Last question. So let's say we have our own website team, our company that does that for us, right? Would your company work with them?
We absolutely can.
So one thing we're struggling with is the website team they're great. They're really great at what they do, but kind of like what you said, that when they were making our equipment pages, they hit you with so many questions that you feel like you're paying these people, but maybe you should just do it, right?
Yeah.
So if you were able to come in and just talk to them and then like send us back to our jobs, that would be huge for us, because I don't want to explain to them that a 19-foot scissor lift can change the light.
Right.
And mind you, there's
Sure.
there's 120 categories. So like we're struggling with our guys. We love them, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
Every single page has to be redone. And exactly what you're saying is the search engine stuff is crazy. We're probably paying like $15,000 a month for searches. And we get some. Exactly. I know. But to know that it's not optimized, right? That makes me sick.
Well,
that makes me sick to my stomach.
But right now, with all of the algorithm changes, AI, LLMs, everywhere we turn around, we have to start thinking differently. And in a small business, we have been able to do a lot of A/B testing, which it's wonderful. And that typically is how we approach any campaign. It's when I get to be a scientist and we get to plan strategies and figure out what works best.
So my wife went to a networking meeting that talked about AI and all that stuff, and they had her do an exercise, chat. Go to chat, Google what's the best equipment company in Arizona, and one of our competitors come up. So with what you're saying, changing all that stuff, chat or whoever will help notice us better.
Absolutely. It is the advantage you're missing, and it's because old SEO practices in a different way. We can't depend on these old tactics anymore. We have moved on with technology, and SEO has to move on as well.
And how are you guys up with Google? Because I know Google's constantly changing. I can't keep up with them.
We're
I'm like,
Google
whatever.
I've been certified in many Google things over the years. I do not run the paid campaigns specifically, but we have a specialist who handles those. As far as normal organic SERPs are concerned, the gentleman right over there is one of our great SEOs. His name's Brian. And essentially, he brings the data to the table. And then I get the beautiful, well, my team gets the beautiful opportunity to figure out how to marry the data with your target audience.
If I can just add one more thing. We've seen, I'm over here. Hey. JCT's worked with probably at least a dozen of our customers. And if you do not have an SEO agency, I would highly recommend getting one, and I would start with them. We've seen the before and after. When they come in and they update your website and put more content out there, revenue goes up. We've seen it. We've seen it so much to the point we have people in different markets. We've seen competitors go down drastically, and we hear about it. And I know that that their competitors using JCT, revenue's going up, and that's stealing market share from other people. So, SEO is a buzzword. I'm just saying it's important, and I've seen it firsthand in the rental industry. I don't think a lot of rental companies do it well. If you're a certain size, if you're over $1 million revenue, you should not be doing it yourself. You should get an expert to do it. I see the results all the time. It's important. Do you have a question?
What do you see as a good number per revenue as far as spending on campaigns? Like per dollar, like if you do $1 million in revenue, what's average people should be spending?
I mean,
like
quite
monthly?
frankly, I don't want to lie to you about that, because being a small business, I worked in enterprise for a long time. I have worked with giants, and what I love is the opportunity to bring those enterprise level thoughts to smaller accounts. That said, we're not your typical agency that will tell you you need to be spending, $200,000 however often. Typically, 10% of revenue is towards marketing historically, like in business classes, that's what they teach you. But we're not gonna try to sell you something you don't need, is what it boils down to. We're probably too honest about that. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thanks you guys.